Alright guys, straight to the point here. I hope everyone had a good day. Drawdown day for me. I had QQQ for December, but all was to be expected. Actually, glad I got my answer as well. We've been talking about Qs and return, I guess not return of the distribution, but the distribution's still at play. If we reach 631, which was this little spot up here, right? If we did that before we got a pullback into 610, I was highly concerned. That would have just been an LPSY, no reaccumulation. This thing would have pushed up on fumes, as I said, or just low fuel into 631, 632. And as I drew up, right, I mean, just kind of a consolidation there. We were basing against 617, and if we hit this, I would have expected, kind of lower highs, big sell-offs back down into 610. That would have been the LPSY off of the buy climax, the upthrust, et cetera, right, since we were in a daily distribution sequence. However, I think that this is a healthy chart despite how today felt. I think I'm actually down about 3K. I had about 5K in profits, so that reflects on the P&L. As we were pushing up into this 623 spot, I was up about 5 or 6. No, I was actually up 7.5K. And then obviously the big drop today sent me down. I'm down. I was down 12 or 14%. I added another 5 contracts, so I finished the day around like -9, -8%. I'm down, I think, like 5K, or 4K actual drawdown, and then the rest of it, the other 3.5, 4K, was just because of I guess the unrealized loss that I had on my gains. So I guess in net or in total, I was down like 7, 8K. Nothing too extreme, but like I said, I think I got the answer I wanted, right? I mean, this kind of gave like a consolidation here in between the gap fill at 623 and then the new one at 610. Could have gone either way, right? We just saw like volume suppression in the last like 3 days, and then we saw the drop first, which is low-key what we wanted. Now we have an opportunity to really base out against 610. 609.74 is the actual fill here. That was the NWOG from back on Friday, and really pull out like a higher low, right? This is what I was saying. We want to see a higher low refuel, maybe some consolidation here for the next couple days, and then a rally back. I would say above like 617. I told you guys this is going to be a big line in the sand, and then make its way up into this gap fill here at 620. Propel through 620, base 623, and then rip right up into the 620, 23 or 632 spot, right? So we can kind of adjust these around a little bit. This is a little bit more difficult than SPY in my opinion. So what we're really looking for, and we can move this around just a tad since that aligns. We're looking for a push up into this little progression gap here, right? This is technically the spot that bears want to try to control. If we can make our way back into these little black box, or this, I guess this black box, or these two black lines here, and just kind of touch the top, pull back base to low, re-break through the top, either base that or get a little excess of a push in base 623. This is a really good looking chart. But yeah, this is an interesting one, right? I said in the chat, that I was going to hedge my longs with shorter dated Friday expiration, right? So you guys kind of saw, where was it? I'll just pull it up on stream real quick, not a big deal. I tried 5 cons of it initially. I was looking for a red to green move. I was up quite a bit from a 1.64 entry. Right, these all went all the way to like 220 or something like that, and then it started to push back up, as you guys saw, right? I think it was like the 617 level perfectly, right? I mean, I got short like right into this candle here. It kept breaking, it kept breaking, it kept breaking. It pushed back up. I got stopped out, break even like right around here, and then it hit 617.54, or that 617 spot. And then we saw another rejection bar here, and as it was breaking down, that's when I added a new set of puts. Always, if you have faith in a, kind of like a thesis, it's okay to re-enter, especially, with big opportunities like this. If we were going to sell to 610, I wanted to hold the whole thing to 610, right? And if I got stopped out break even, so be it. But I wanted to try to hold the full thing to mitigate the downside just a little bit. So I got back in. I just kind of checked with the chat here. Try again. Just wait for the 610 dip to add the long. I tried again. I took another lot at like 1.55, so a slightly better fill than what I previously had. And yeah, I got these all the way down to, I think, like 120%. 854 is right around when I closed. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, 854-ish. So I closed like down here. somewhere in here, right in like the 610 spot, and then it started to consolidate here, and this is where I was looking for it to base and then kind of rally off this one, or at least find a bottom today, gap up tomorrow, pull back, create a higher low off of the gap up, or the bull gap, if you will. But yeah, that was pretty much the thesis here. But I did say in the chat I was a little bit worried, right? I was a little worried because with SPY, right? Let's take a look real quick. It had a little bit more room. So like, we just look at the timing here. Like, it was like 9:30, 10 o'clock ish when it found the bottom at 610, which was the area I was looking to buy Qs on. But if we take a look at SPY really quickly, SPY's gap fill was down here, right? So kind of the same exact gap that we were expecting, the higher low off 670.97 was like sitting right here. Take a look at the timing differential, right? So 9:45, 10 o'clock, 10:30, right? This was the low here, but Qs had filled the gap already. SPY needed another leg down to fill that gap. So I was kind of expecting an undercut, honestly. I put in the chat too, I'm kind of front running this, so I was expecting a little bit of drawdown just to get a couple of additional ads on that one, but it is a big size trade for me. I'm at like 25 or 20 cons, somewhere in that realm. I want to try to get this up to around like 50 to 100, and it's going to be a pretty big trade, guys, like legit. Maybe 70 cons, we'll see how I feel. But yeah, so sitting like right under like 20% total account value on this one. So big trade for me, especially if I said we got the 610 pullback before 631. But yeah, that pulling down into 670 gave QQQ the final leg under, and then as it broke under, I started to notice kind of like the volume patterns. Excuse me. Oh God, sorry, big burp. I just had a monster, but the volume patterns here, we saw not like really extreme lows, right? Obviously, this did make a new low, but as I said, SPY pulled down into the spot and kind of caught a bid almost immediately once it filled the gap. This didn't make an extreme low, right? As it broke down, you guys can see, it was like $3, 0.5%, if you will, but a lot of the volume started to really come in at the lows. We saw, the volume from the opening print. We saw high volume here off of 610. Right, for the most part, the consolidation here was on low volume, and then it broke down and made a new low, and then your highest volume bar on this one was 11:30 with this hammer candle. Didn't make a new low, a lot of lower wicks here, and then obviously the highest volume at the close, which really maintained the lows here. And as I said, that was the SPY gap fill at 670. So really, like I mentioned, right, we want to see a healthy structure built now, and a move back above 610 to reclaim QQQ gap, right, because we are basing the trade off Qs. So I would like to see a gap up tomorrow, right? Push back above 610, really build out against 610, and just make this little gap here a valid support. And then just look for this to slowly start to trend up, right? Slowly start to trend up, get back above today's open, right? Since we did gap down, so we look for a move back above 617.54, and then get a nice little rally up into 621. I still don't think the last leg is done with, right? And this kind of just gave me a little bit more conviction, the fact that it pulled down into 610. 670 for SPY before we reach that upside gap, right? So this is kind of what I'm expecting, kind of what I'm looking for. I think a lot of people are panicking on any downside moves here without really understanding structure. A lot of people, as we've been saying, are over leveraged or underexposed, and they want this thing to sell off drastically so they can get entries. I don't think that's the case, right? I think a lot of institutions are still under leveraged, and they still want to get in, and the pullbacks are meaningful, right, in terms of them getting a valid entry. And I think a lot of the pullbacks have been really mechanical, right, and they've been used on low volume through the use of bidding down to try to get fills, and a lot of people are just misconstruing it. To give me a little bit more conviction, right? I always talk about dark pools. If you guys don't understand them, I won't do like a video on that today. But on SPY itself, we saw 38 prints at 683. So sells to the upside, right? Market doesn't move, as I always say. It's an auction. It's going to go to the highest seller, and it's going to go down to the lowest buyer, right? And that's kind of how these things move. And they mask it underneath the hood, whether they're selling on the lit exchange and then they're bidding down simultaneously to get price to go down, or they are buying kind of under the hood into these bids and then simultaneously placing their sell orders higher, because once they get their fills down here, the market will gravitate to the upside once they get their fills, and they can sell higher. Kind of how it works. So 38 sitting, if we go back to SPY, sitting right around here. So 683 was the spot. So that was obviously the gap down. And then the other big one was still the 687 mark. So once again, all the bids have been filled to the downside. I would expect them to have enough inventory to be able to mark price up. So we're looking for 683, 687 if you trade SPY. And then Qs, I will show that on the screen real quick. SPY obviously has a lot more liquidity. I mean, they both have a lot of liquidity, but SPY's more heavily favored. So Q's kind of the same thing, just doesn't have as much activity. So 621 was the spot here on Q's. So we're looking for, as I said, I have the open marked, but the open isn't really too meaningful. I would just look for that to break above and then pull back and base it. But we're really just kind of looking for 621 here, right? So as I said, just a reclaim over 610. That's a huge spot on the chart. Trend up, maybe hit 617, pull back or push up and base that, and then rip into like 621, or maybe get a little excess, as I said, into the 623 spot, pull back base, rally all the way to 631, 632. And I showed you guys, or I think I told you guys last time, like on 632 here, some of the highest I've seen since April. I think this individual level had about 68 prints. I can just show you guys really quick how much is at these spots here. Bear with me 1 second. You guys can just see, like, they haven't gotten rid of a lot of the clusters, but a lot of money sitting at like 632, 630, 631. Like you guys can see on the right hand side, the price levels. Oh, that's actually giving it. So yeah, 632, 1.3 billion, 631, 782, 530, 730. So you guys can see how much is layered there. The highest aggregate level is right now for the pull in terms of dark pull. How much is setting up at particular levels is 631. If we take a look at SPY and just look at that real quick, kind of the same vision, right? We did pull down into this $1.2 billion bid, $2 billion bid, right? So $3.2 billion sitting around like 671.80. I don't think it's a coincidence. That's where we kind of bottomed today, even though we wicked a little bit under to fill the gap. That's where a majority of the buys were on that. And then the planning to mark this up, as you guys can see, the aggregate level is 682, right? So 682, you guys can see kind of the same exact thing, right? Where we have 9.18, 681, 683, and then we go back to SPY itself. What level was it? 682. I'm pretty sure that's the high up here. Yeah, or that's 687 technically. So 682 would be like right around here, right? So just filling the gap right around 683. We should be in profit at that point on Qs, because all that would be on QQQ would be a move back up into like 621, maybe a little bit higher, like through 623. But obviously tech kind of led the rally. I'd assume tech also gets a little bit of an additional bump, especially with so much exposure to NVIDIA, which they do report here shortly. So yeah, just kind of waiting, kind of just seeing if we can reclaim 610. Told everybody, risk, I know it seems far away, but risk is still 598. I'm risking the potential bottoming candle here from last Friday. I still think that's a pretty good risk, right? I mentioned if we can get our entry to be somewhere around here, which is pretty damn close as of right now. Risk to reward, just from an equity perspective, would be, move all the way up here. That's right around a 2R. I'll take that all day, every day, right? Especially with a full-size position, and kind of giving this some breathing room at the same time. But that's really all I got. I know some people on Twitter, and I was kind of just, looking around. A lot of people are super panicked. I could care less, right? I mean, I'm going to win my way and lose my way, and I've been doing this a while, so I trust myself and I trust my system, so not much else to it right there besides that. And that is going to conclude tonight's video. I hope you guys are doing all right. I know it seems scary. It sucks to be up. Like, I was up 7K on Qs after catching, this gap up here, letting it consolidate for 3 or 4 days, and I really didn't do much. I took the Microsoft trade. I took a little small like QQQ hedge where I made like $700, and then obviously the 7K fell off, and then I went an additional like 3K under. It's not fun, right? But swing trading, this is how it works. Having a conviction and an idea, being okay adding into something that has time, and letting structure play out. As I said, I think this is the higher low. Is all a skill that takes some development, right? And I try not to focus on my P&L too much. I just kind of look at it just so I can tell you guys, so you guys can either relate or kind of like understand my, whatever's going through my head through the pressure of seeing drawdown or, making money. I try to turn it off and kind of disconnect from the money side of it. But that's what I'm looking at. So really big Friday, if you will. Next week is the strongest Vonda Charm flow pull, right? So we might just get a kind of a healthy retrace back up to the 20-day. I think a lot of people might be looking to fade the pop off of the 616 20-day here. But yeah, I think that something will occur that gives us a little extra propulsion up into like 621, 623. Depending on volume, I might trim there. We'll see. But yeah, that's going to be it for tonight's video, guys. Just a quick, short, simple one for you guys. So I'll see you guys next time.